This is Max Shears, a pro boxing fan. I'm me joined once again by Duke Mckenzie the day after the night before. Fabio Wardley, now WBO interim world champion. First of all, we just kind of touched on it off camera, but going into the fight, what did you expect to happen?
No, you know what? Didn't pick Wardley to win this one. You
Hmm.
know, I thought to myself, Josie Parker is such a good seasoned all rounder. I thought he'd have way too much savvy, just enough up top. But it was like as soon as the first bell went, it turned into gunfight at the OK Corral. Now Wardley had been saying that from day one, right? He said I'm going to go out, I'm going to meet him in the middle of the ring, and I'm going to fight him. When somebody's that blatant, when somebody lays out their stall that clearly, then that should say to you, you know, with heavyweight boxing, unlike any weight division there is, somebody's going to get knocked out, somebody's going to get hurt. They both promised that. They both brought that. You got to take your hat off to the pair of them for producing that. It was like I say, it's like gunfight at the OK Corral, and that fight for me was like it was Parker's to lose, and he threw it away. He threw the fight away. It doesn't really look any clearer than that to me. He threw that one away. He just went in and said so. He gave Fabio Wardley, gave him no respect in terms of his punch power. Now everybody knows that Fabio's a banger, can't box to save his life, but he can punch. And he went out there last night and he just punched. The punches were coming in from all angles, and it was like just the first one to land. Everybody could see it, except Parker. He threw it away. It's as blatant as that. And he got himself to blame.
Yeah, there was some moments in the fight that I want to touch on. Before we get to that, I want to ask you the question that a lot of people are talking about right now. Was it an early stoppage, do you feel?
Slightly premature.
Hmm.
Slightly premature. I mean, he was hurt, no doubt. He was on the ropes, not responding. He'd been hurt a couple of times previously in the fight. They were both hurt in the fight, and they both managed to weather the early storm. It you can't really argue the stoppage because this is somebody's life we're talking about. And again, you're one punch from victory, one punch from disaster. And that's what we don't want to see. But he was still on his feet, but he wasn't responding. And Fabio was just sort of teeing off on him. And he was so crude. The both of them, they were so crude in their approach. They were just swinging shots from Timbuktu and Tijuana and hoping the first one was going to detonate and land, and it did. And when it did, then boy, that was the end result. That's what you got.
I want to ask you, you've seen a lot of boxing, and there's been so much talk of the power of Fabio Wardley. And to be honest, you've heard the comparisons with Deontay Wilder and stuff, and I didn't expect that. Like I said, I also thought Joseph Parker maybe would be too much for him. But like I say, from your time watching boxing, especially that heavyweight division, how much of an equalizer and like a tool can power be to navigate your way to the very top?
Well, listen, hasn't this man? I was going to call him a boy. He's not a boy. Hasn't this man done tremendously?
Mm.
Limited experience, no amateur pedigree. I'm talking about. He's had to learn on the job, right? His handful of fights, his 20 odd fights that he's had in the pro game. There's been a warning from day one. He's been knocking people out for fun from day one. Now, guess what? He's been stepping up through the ranks and he's continued to do that. Many people, myself included, I didn't think he'd be able to bridge that gap from where he was, club fighter, YouTuber or whatever he wants to call himself, kickboxer. I don't know what he'd done before, but he was on something before, doing something before. I didn't think he'd be able to make the transition from where he was to where he is now. This guy's on the verge of fighting one of the all-time greats in world boxing. He's on the verge. I'm going to say that again. He's on the verge of fighting one of the all-time greats in world boxing with limited experience. He got nothing to bring to his game except that KO detonate murderous puncher that he is. And I felt a bit sorry for Joseph Parker yesterday, because you know what, when they announced Fabio as the winner, do you know what he said to himself? I blew it. I threw it away. That's what he said to himself. Because you know what? He's been waiting so long, creeping along, beating whoever they put in front of him, doing what he had to do. I'm not so sure he had to take this fight, but he said, you know what? I'm a warrior. Who gives a damn about being a warrior? You do safety first. But he went, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to take on this dangerous puncher that's had all these knockouts, and I'll mark time with another scalp. which I thought he would. I really thought Joseph Parker would win last night. I can't say it any clearer than that, but he rolled the dice and it was one dice too short and he come up way short.
Yeah, I want to touch on as well. You mentioned obviously Fabio's lack of experience. Earlier on in the week, I remember writing an article about Fabio Wardley, and there was a quote where he talks about being in a pub. I think the pub was called The Plough, and he watched Joseph Parker win his world title as a white collar fighter.
Yeah,
I
there you go.
personally can't. Can you think of many stories in boxing where like there might be someone that's he will have watched a fight, not even looking at him as an opponent or a future rival, and now he's gone and beaten him?
He's the Cinderella man, isn't he? You know, he is the Cinderella man. You can't really. There's so many sort of superlatives you can put on this boy. Come from nowhere, Cinderella man, never given a chance. You know, but he's proved all the doubters wrong yet again. Anybody that said that he can't fight, get found out. I was one of them guys. He's proved us all wrong.
Mm.
I mean, when I saw him destroy Fraser Clark, I thought he was a live one then. And I thought to myself, people said to me, how would he go against Usyk? And I thought, you know what, this boy would give Usyk a fight. And people laughed at me. Then they're not laughing now. He's a live wire and he could upset. Listen, Moses Zalma, mate, you better watch out because we got a live one over here. Listen, because Wardley's not scared. Wardley's not, he don't scare no one. No, he's not scared of anyone. He'll go and fight with anyone. He'll put it all on the line. He'll put his chin out there and they'll have it tested. And he's got the power, which he's proven. Again, like I say, Joseph Parker threw that one away badly last night. Wardley just said to him, let's just fight. And that's what he did. And he come off the better of the two.
I want to ask you, Duke. Obviously, you are a fighter. You know what it's like to be a fighter. And I remember I had the pleasure of speaking to Joseph Parker in Saudi Arabia a few months back, and he said, "I just need to fight." And I think you could see it in him. I think coming into this fight, Joseph Parker had boxed 2 rounds in 19 months. Fabio Wardley had boxed 23. Do you think that was a factor in this fight, or do you think it was Fabio Wardley wins most nights? Do you think, or
Well, I'm not going to say it was a factor because, you know, yeah, Joseph Parker hadn't had a lot of activity, admittedly, and from his own mindset and his own mouth, he said to himself, "I need the rounds.
yeah,
If I'm going to go on and challenge Usyk for the big one, I need the rounds." I don't think for 1 minute he took his eyes off the prize and thought to himself this was going to be an easy fight. He rolled the dice in it, and they come up short for him. That's all it was. Bad tactical move. Don't really know where his head was at. I was always taught in fights, whether it be 6, 8, 10, or 12 round world title fights. They call it game plan these days, but I like to say setting out my stall. And there's so many rounds where you just box. There's so many rounds where you test the other guy. There's so many rounds where you push it, and then exactly where you are going into the last third or 3 or 4 rounds of the fight if you're still there, of course. But your man didn't do that last night. And also, tactically speaking, I don't know where his hands were at because when I saw him on the pads training, Joseph Parker, his hands were up, his chin was down, he was jumping around the ring, knocking out nice little tidy combinations. Come fight night, his left hand couldn't have been any lower, had it right down by his side, inviting Fabio Wardley to throw his right hand over the top. And it really was a case of the first one to land. And the first one to land, it was sent a shudder down your spine because he was hurt badly. Joseph Parker was hurt badly in that fight early. And then he hurt Fabio badly. And one of the things Fabio hasn't learned is how to disguise it when you are hurt, how to try and hold, claim, mess the other guy around, get your head clear again. He's still pretty bad at doing that. I still see flaws in him. But, you write him off at your own peril, don't you? Now, you write him off at your own peril. Still don't think he beats Usyk. Nobody's beating Usyk. Let's get that right. But, once that deck's been cleared and Alexander the Great moves over and the belts are all thrown up in the air, this boy's going to be right up there in the mix. And, he can call out anyone. Joshua, Fury, Parker. Who else is there? Cabello. Cabello's a great fight. Oh, boy. He's the one for me. Yeah, that's the one for me. But like I say, he's right. He's right up there with the big boys now. Can't say no. Can't doubt him, can you?
yeah, Duke. Well, I want to give you your flowers. Like I say, you touched on it earlier. I saw a clip 9 months ago where you said that Wardley would be Usyk's toughest test. But I feel like I've seen you say it even before, and I'll admit I never thought that, but now you see it, you can't disagree. I know you said you think Usyk would be too much for Wardley, but if them two do meet in the ring, which looks like it might happen now, how does Wardley win that fight?
By the same way he's won all these other fights. He
Yeah.
just rolls the dice. You know, again, we're talking about levels.
Mm.
And, we're talking about levels and how you set out your store. And Alexander the Great, that's what he is. He's much too smart for Fabio. Fabio's got a puncher's chance. Of course he has. He's proved that again last night. But, Alexander Usyk, he's a good puncher himself. Look what he did to Daniel Dubois. Look what he did to AJ. Look what he did to Fury. Beat the living daylights out of all of them. He always finds a way to win. He's got the class. He has that pedigree that we've been talking about earlier on. The amateur pedigree. We actually taught how to box. Fabio hasn't been taught how to box. Fabio has been taught how to fight. Fabio Wardley is a one-dimensional wrecking machine. He can fight, no doubt about it. Take my hat off to him if I wore one, but I don't. But you got to say to yourself, you know what, this kid, listen, he can fight.
Mm-hmm.
But Alexander Usyk's too smart for him. He's too smart for anybody. And I think that's a little bit of it's probably an unfair question because Alexander Usyk beats everybody. There isn't anybody to beat him. There just isn't. He's proven that time and time again. That's why he's unbeaten. But like I say, once the dust settles and the great Usyk moves on, then Wardley is going to become world champion at some point. He may not win it in his first attempt against Usyk, but can you imagine the experience that he's going to gain from fighting Usyk? And then he takes that into the world title fight because he's clearly learned from his last that when he boxed that Hooney
Mm-hmm.
and he got exposed badly, and learned a little bit from that one. Come back and look pretty decent last night. So again, got to take your hat off to the man. Sorry, the man. Got to take your hat off to the man. He's one to be reckoned with.
Definitely. Now, you might shut me down here, but I want to put my matchmaker hat on right now. And you mentioned Justice Hooney. I think you could see the skill of Justice Hooney in that fight. Would you like to see Justice Hooney fight Moses Atama? Do you think that's a fight that could be good here? Obviously, Hooney's got the boxing ability. Do you think Justice Hooney has the ability? Now you see how Wardley did against a world level opposition in Joseph Parker. Could that be a good fight with Moses Atama, or is Atama too much?
No, that would be the perfect fight for Moses Atama right now to gauge himself to see where he is on the world scene at world level. Because Moses hasn't boxed anybody that's remotely world class. He has boxed, when you start weighing it up and you look at Wardley and his path to where he is now, he's boxed one or two world class fighters now and done a job on them. Joseph Parker being his biggest scout. That's a world class good victory. Got the confidence from it now. Moses Atama hasn't beaten anybody like that with that class. So let's spin that around. Let's say Wardley against Atama. Where would you go with that one right now? Because I know where my money would be right now. Because listen, I like Moses Atama. I like him a lot, and people want to beat him down and say he ain't boxed nobody, which he hasn't, right? And wouldn't it be nice to see him learn his trade at a steady rate and go on and conquer the world? He probably will, but he hasn't got that time now. He's been propelled into the world scene, and everybody's talking about him being the next great coming, the second coming. But you know what? I'm not writing off Fabio Wardley. I ain't gonna say he couldn't beat Moses Atama. They've been looking for an opponent. Oh, I'm not gonna call him an opponent. They've been looking for a fight for him. How about that one?
Definitely. Now, I don't know if you saw on the stream, there was a bit of a back and forth, and Chisora, as always, was joking around with Frank Warren about the contract and stuff. But it does look like we're going to see Derek Chisora versus Dillian Whyte 3. Does that excite you? What do you make of that fight?
Well, listen, you laughed and I laughed, right? We've got two guys that are proud servants to the sport of boxing, right? Which they are. And you know what? They kind of deserve one another,
Yeah.
Yeah, they deserve one another. You don't want to see those guys in with a Moses Atalma. You don't want to see those guys in with Hooney or Cabello, or Joseph Parker. You don't want to see them fight. They're good enough for one another. That's where they are right now. They're both shot over the hill, ready to go. First one to land. It's going to be a little slugfest for 2 or 3 rounds. Don't know if I'd probably go with Chisora, given Dillian Whyte's demise in his last fight. The decline was rapid. Don't really think he's got anything left. anything left. But Chisora hasn't got that much left. So like I say, they deserve one another. It's a good fight on paper because for as long as it lasts, they'll just go at it for as long as it lasts, or they won't. Who knows?
Definitely. Kind of following on from that, I don't know if you saw it, but you had, I don't want to forget anyone, there's Caballel, Adelaide, Akoli, Itauma. You had a full heavyweight roster. When you look at this heavyweight division, is there any fights that stand out to you that you want to put maybe Itauma and Caballel together? Like, what fights stand out to you in that heavyweight division right now?
Yeah, Itauma and Caballel.
Yeah.
That's a standout for me. That's like I say, you take Alexander Usyk out of the equation, and you look for the next two young rising stars of the heavyweight division. For me, there isn't any. No, I'm not going to say there's nobody else. You've got to throw Fabio back into the equation now. Now you do, because he's got a puncher's chance. He's proven that time and time again. He's a puncher. He's not a boxer. He'll get in there and he'll punch the living daylights out of you if you stand and trade with him. So the kind of guy that beats him is a boxer. And Caballel does both. He can fight. He's intelligent. He can box. Good body puncher. Good ring IQ. I like Caballel at the current crop of heavyweights that are out there right now. I like him a lot. But like I say, Wardley's a live wire, and you write him off at your own peril.
Yeah, now Duke, last one before I let you go. Let's say you're Alexander Usyk, you're a three-time undisputed champion, two-time heavyweight undisputed champion.
I'm a
I don't
three-time world
know,
champion.
I don't
Sorry.
know the business side of boxing, but if you get offered, I don't know, 20 million to fight Fabio Wardley, or maybe 100 million to have a trilogy with Anthony Joshua, or even we don't know what's going on with Tyson Fury, do you take a live wire like Fabio Wardley, which maybe I'm wrong here, but you'd assume would be less money than maybe an AJ fight?
Would I take on Fabio Wardley or AJ? I'd probably take the AJ fight. It's safer. Yeah, it's safer. Live to fight another day. Get another 20 million. You're still going to earn your money. Do you see what I mean? Like I say, Wardley's a handful for anybody. And so long as he's on his feet, he's a danger for anybody. He's a menace. And like I say, he's going to be in the mix. He's going to be in the mix. Alexander isn't going to fight forever. Says maybe another 3, 4, 5 fights. I don't think he'll go 5 myself. I think personally, he's just going to have the one and then just walk away because he can. He's that good. And like I say, one more and out.
Yeah, sorry, last one. I'm sure you saw him ringside, Tyson Fury. Do you think we're going to see him in the ring again or not?
No,
I don't know.
no, I don't think we're going to see him in the ring again. Listen, he said openly this week, I've read on social media that they couldn't offer him enough money to come out of retirement. These are his words, not mine. So when your head's already been turned and you've got 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out, and you already talk, he's retired more times than God knows than anybody else I've ever known in the boxing game. He doesn't want to fight anymore. I don't blame him. Go and spend your money, live your life. You've got a beautiful family. Enjoy your family. Go on holidays. Do all the things you've always said you wanted to do in life. The fight game's it's not a game. It's not a game. You can lose your life. Would you put Tyson Fury, current form, in with Fabio Wardley right now? It's crazy. It's crazy. That's a fight you wouldn't even have mentioned 6, 8, 10 months ago. But now Fabio Wardley's a live wire. He's right up there. You can call out anybody with conviction. And, like I said, you're back against him at your own peril.
Definitely, Roger. Thank you as always for